Those of us who don't care for what Star Wars has become under Disney's direction have been asking for something, anything, to get us excited about the direction of the franchise again. Whether that be moving on from Kathleen Kennedy, or retconning the sequel trilogy, or even just splintering off the Mandoverse from the sequels using the Veil of the Force or some other method, we just want something.
Do something! Do something! Do something!
Oh yeah, no, you know what, no.
One of our greatest hopes for seeing some sort of change has been the financial problems that Disney has been embroiled in the past few years. The idea was that if things got bad enough at the company, then eventually Disney would feel compelled to cater to the large segment of fans who felt betrayed and attacked by Lucasfilm these past several years.
Backstabber!
In this video, we're going to talk about the recent good news that Disney put out on the financial front. Good news, that is, for Disney. This has many Star Wars fans concerned that Disney won't have a good reason any longer to change their ways. However, we're also going to discuss the bad news for Disney as well, a bunch of reasons for the Star Wars fandom to hold hope for the future. And then we're going to finish up by discussing the most important questions of all. Is Disney incentivized to change things up in Star Wars? And more importantly, will they give the fans, those of us that Kathleen Kennedy and Lucasfilm alienated for years, will they actually give us anything we want? Naturally, I'll want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. What do you think will happen with Disney and Lucasfilm in the near future? As for me, well, this is a little spoiler for what I think on the matter. The Disney Financial Earnings Report for Q1 of 2022 dropped in early February, and for Disney CEO Bob Chapek, it was absolutely good news. Let's take a look at this article from The Wrap to give us an idea of just how good things looked for that first fiscal quarter. Disney stock soars as Q1 earnings smash through Wall Street expectations. Disney in its Q1 earnings for the 22 fiscal year smashed expectations from Wall Street in both its earnings and revenues, and as a result, the Mouse House's stock price has jumped in after hours trading. The company reported revenue of $21.81 billion during the quarter that ended January 1st of 22. We'll skip down to that last paragraph here where it says, as for Disney Plus, the streaming service added 11.8 million subscribers in Q1, which was well above analyst expectations of around 7 million. The number is buoyed by the success of Encanto, but also other event programming such as The Beatles Get Back. This is only partially true, as we'll see in the second part of the video. Something else helped Disney Plus, which we'll talk about then, but yes, Disney Plus numbers were absolutely aided by Encanto, which, strangely enough, didn't do very well at the box office, but absolutely exploded onto the streaming scene. The most recent Nielsen information, which covers the final week of January, shows Encanto still absolutely demolishing the competition. In fact, if you add up the millions of minutes of every Netflix show on this list, they still don't add up to Encanto. Now that's dominance.
Holy crap!
Skipping down a bit further, the article says, direct-to-consumer revenues for the quarter increased 34% to $4.7 billion, though operating loss increased 27% to $0.6 billion. The increase in operating loss was due to higher losses at Disney Plus, and to a lesser extent, ESPN Plus, partially offset by improved results at Hulu. What this section tells us is that despite massive growth in the quarter, the streaming services of Disney are still operating at a loss. Last month they lost $600 million roughly, mostly from Disney Plus. This will be important information later on, but this paragraph here shows us why Disney was still up so much in the quarter. At Disney's parks, the parks, experiences, and products revenues for the quarter increased to $7.2 billion compared to $3.6 billion in the prior year quarter, in part because of both higher volumes as beer bug restrictions lessened, but also increased spending. In other words, the Disney parks doubled their revenue from the previous quarter, which was a massive shot in the arm for Disney. Consequently, when the earnings report for the quarter was released, Disney stock shot up from the lower $140 per share up to the mid-150s at its recent height.
Well, I guess I'm a little out of my league here. Good work.
Oh, there is just one more thing, Lieutenant.
Despite all of the great Disney financial news at this earnings report, here's something that all of the shills in the media just don't want to talk about. See this chart here? It shows only the last month of Disney stock price action. But what if we go ahead and zoom out and look at all of the last year?
That's gotta hurt! It's gotta hurt!
This chart is an investor's worst nightmare. A year ago, Disney was loving life at an all-time stock price high of about $201 per share, but it just kinda dwindled all year long until right here, when it fell off a cliff. But what happened on that particular day to make it fall like that? That was the earnings call from Q4 of last year when Disney had to report they had absolutely stalled out on Disney Plus by adding only a paltry 2.1 million subscribers. Look at how far down their stock plummeted. And now Disney is trying to spin this price action right in here as some amazing recovery. Well, I don't think they're safe yet. And that's not all their bad news. Consider how closely linked it seems their stock price seems to be tied to Disney Plus. And then let's look at another article, this one from The Information. And stick with me here, folks, because I'm not making the case that Disney's gonna go bankrupt or anything, but I am making the case for why we have more leverage over Disney than many people think. Anyhow, the article's headline reads, "The Risks of Disney's Quick Fix for Subscriber Growth."
My, the plot like my gravy thicken.
Disney has figured out an ingenious way to jumpstart its streaming subscriber growth. Give people less of a choice. Since late December, Disney has automatically included Disney Plus and ESPN Plus in one of its Hulu offerings at a slightly higher price than it previously charged, we learned today. Ingenious, it's a reminder that the customer-unfriendly DNA of the television industry still lurks in the genes of companies like Disney. There's only one reason you take this action, and it's to juice subscriber numbers. And we already know why they'd be desperate to juice those numbers, don't we? Because otherwise, the free fall would continue.
Hey, Scungili!
The article continues, the strategy is working so far. Disney executives said the bundling, which they called a strategic decision, whatever that means, accounted for half of the surprisingly strong North American subscriber additions for Disney Plus in the quarter. And sure, it's a good deal for consumers right now. Even after the price raise, the bundle implies a hefty discount on all three services. Remember earlier when I highlighted the fact that the streaming services for Disney are operating at a loss? Well, maybe it's because of tricks like this, where they're offering discounts on the services to bring in new subs. Don't get me wrong, I understand that this can be a valid strategy. Disney is operating under the belief that if they can just get their foot in the door with a lot of customers, if they can get people to see what they have to offer, then those people will want to keep their subscriptions. Well, this is a nice segue to the final section of this video. Why is it that Bob Chapek released his memo earlier this year detailing how Disney employees are supposed to treat customers? Why has Pablo Hidalgo been uncharacteristically radio silent on Twitter the past few weeks? Why have we seen very few public appearances by Kathleen Kennedy for months?
Well, we're waiting.
Look at this chart here from Nielsen, showcasing the top 10 streaming shows from the final week of January. During the previous week, episode 4 was the most recent episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and the show barely made it into the top 5 on that list. But with episode 5, it jumped all the way up to number 2. What gave the show a sudden jolt of popularity? Spoilers for the Book of Boba Fett are upcoming. If you haven't seen the show, stop here, go watch it, and then come back.
You have been warned.
Still here? Well, you probably remember that episode 5 of the Book of Boba was the Din Djarin episode, the one where Boba Fett literally was never on screen the entire time. I'm dying to find out next week how episode 6, the Luke Skywalker episode, fared. I'm certain the ratings will be sky high, maybe not enough to dethrone Ozark, but I'll bet they're good. And if you think Disney doesn't see what the most popular parts of their streaming services are, then you're nuts. They know that The Mandalorian and Grogu and Luke Skywalker are keeping the franchise on life support. Check out this article from CBR. Disney Plus promo places The Mandalorian at the center of the modern Star Wars universe. Disney Plus released a new Star Wars promo for The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. The promo begins by reminding fans that it's been 2 years since The Mandalorian premiered as Disney Plus's flagship series. After 2 seasons, the story spilled into the Book of Boba Fett for the back half of what may or may not be the only season of the spin-off. Disney clearly understands what is buttering their bread within Star Wars, and they clearly understand that Disney Plus is extremely important to the health of their company and their stock prices. They're operating their streaming services at a loss right now, but there will be a time when that is no longer acceptable, and I'd be surprised if folks like Bob Chapek and Susan Arnold weren't looking at a branch of the company like Lucasfilm as dead weight. And how long are they willing to tolerate that, especially when the studio is in charge of what was once the most popular IP in the history of cinema?
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right.
For the past few weeks, I've seen a bunch of doom and gloom from folks in response to the Disney financial news. The assumption seems to be that we've lost. But I think there's plenty of evidence that we're winning. We may not get all that we want, but if we keep demanding better content, withholding our money that we would have normally spent on things like merchandise from Star Wars, and if we just maintain a general level of apathy about the franchise, eventually we can win this war of attrition. Hell, go spend the money you would have given Disney on one of their competitors, like a good anime such as My Hero Academia or Death Note or something. That really hurts for a company like Disney.
Ow. 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 Ow.
The point is, Lucasfilm is ripe for the picking right now. Last year, at about this time, Disney was riding high like they are right now, and they lost out big time. Bob Chapek can't afford for that to happen again. Keep punishing them for firing Gina, for keeping Kathleen Kennedy, and for trying to sell us female Jesus with a lightsaber, and eventually, maybe, things will work out. But what do you think? Do you see the fans winning this? Do you see Disney caving and giving us some of what we want? Or do you think there's too many normies out there who will keep Lucasfilm afloat? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's have a discussion. As for me, I think we got him on the run.
Come back here so that I may bring thee!
Thanks for watching, me hearties. If you haven't already, your captain is inviting you to subscribe to the channel and become a part of the crew. Life as a space pirate may not be glamorous, but there's always plenty of booty.